Coming up in this video, what to do during Dark Night of the Soul. There is hope. If you're new, consider subscribing, click that bell, and you'll be good to go.
You'll be so good to go. But before we get into the good stuff, we have a public service announcement.
You're feeling hopeless. You think there's no way out.
We're going to bust you out of that myth because that is what we do.
And for those of you who don't know us yet,
I'm Heather.
And I'm David.
From ZenRoseGarden.com.
Yes. Helping people create
badass lives.
Because that's what we do.
That is also what we do. So I want to, as you come on, play a little numbers game because we're taking kind of a poll from the audience. I want you to drop the number of any of the following that apply to you in the comments.
Number 1, you find it hard to love yourself.
Number 2, you have a difficult time finding your life purpose.
Number 3, you just can't seem to trust your intuition even if you know better.
Number 4, you've lost the passion for life.
Or number 5, you can't seem to figure out your why. If any of these apply to you, put the right numbers that apply to you in the comments. 1, you find it hard to love yourself. 2, you have a difficult time finding your life purpose. 3, you just can't seem to trust your intuition even if you know better. 4, you've lost the passion for life. 5, you can't seem to figure out your why. Let us know in the comments.
Anyway, want to let you guys know we've
got something very special for you at the end, and we've got a few examples of some of the thousands of people that we've worked with who have solved some of those very same issues and more.
Right.
And at the end, we're going to share those with you.
So we want you to listen to all the tips today. This is episode number 3 in our Dark Night of the Soul series. We're going to get into it, but we want to show you how to get started with something that will literally take your life from basic to badass in 90 seconds, but only if it fits for you.
And we'll get to that at the end.
Yes.
Keep in mind, that isn't for everyone. What we're going to show you at the end is not for everyone, and only you can decide if it's right for you. We know that it works, but we want you to know whether or not it works for you.
So here's a secret. We like to give you a little bit about our personal lives if you might not know. We've got 4 grown-ass kids between us.
And they're all off on their own little journeys. Little journeys? How about big journeys? Well, all with completely different personalities. And one thing happens to be the common element here is that we're all a bunch of quirky brain miners. Diving into the mysteries of life, unlocked by the hidden powers of sushi.
That's our secret weapon. So
Absolutely.
Through all of our work with over 2,000 clients all over the world since 2008, we noticed a huge gap in what was being taught by a lot of the influencers in our niche that seemed to be doing the same thing everybody else was doing.
But we are not trying to be the next cookie cutter gurus.
And here's what we noticed. Some people taught the really cool intuitive techniques without the foundation of self-growth to stabilize it.
And others taught the self-growth without having a clue of what to do when people started opening up their intuitive skills.
So both groups have a ceiling that lacks integration. And that is why we're doing classes like this to kind of fill that gap, because that's what we have been doing the last 11 years.
And if you stay to the end, we'll show you why that's important for you.
So if you have any questions as we go, because we're going to get deep in today's episode, drop them in the comments.
We will have a short Q&A at the end. And if we don't get to your questions live, we will answer any questions that you have on the replay.
If you're watching live, give us a hashtag live tribe. I see some people on right now that are familiar. Hi, welcome.
If you are watching on the replay, hashtag replay fam. As you come on, say hello, let us know where you're watching from, and now it's time for the good stuff.
For the good stuff. So what to do during Dark Night of the Soul. Number 1, there's hope. You've already gotten through the Purge of the Senses, which was last episode. So be sure to watch that so you can kind of catch up.
And if you miss any of these episodes or any of these episodes, yeah, any of the videos that you've already missed, go back and watch them. And stay tuned as we continue going on this particular series. So with the Dark Night of the Soul and what to do during the Dark Night of the Soul, you're in this middle of a darkness, feeling pain that is so deep that it makes me want to call your mama.
Your mama?
Makes me want to call you mama. Makes you want to call your mama.
Mine's in heaven.
But you wouldn't know what to say because your world is all upside down and inside out. That sounds like some EDM song you might hear kids listening to.
EDC
while
is going on right now.
Experiencing their own
Vegas.
trips. And we're going to give you some tips to navigate the storm while creating a whole new you.
Okay, so here we go, guys. As we told you last week, we've been talking about this. Philosophers as well as religious thinkers through time all over the world postulate, I love that word, right? Postulate that the personality needs to mature by going through the dark night of the soul, or the existential crisis, as more brainiac term for it.
Again, the dark night part actually consists of 2 parts in a 3-part process. You've got the dark night itself, the illumination, and the union.
So the 2 parts of the dark night are, number 1, the purge of the senses, which we talked about in the last episode.
And then we've got the purge of the spirit, the purge or purification. Both of these are kind of interchangeable because you're purifying as you're purging.
In this episode, we're going to talk about the second one, the purge of the spirit, or the belief system. This is the part where the work starts to really happen. You're still in that dark night where it's kind of painful and scary, but you're actually kind of getting a little bit more work done than in the purge of the senses. Where in the purge of the senses, you're just kind of holding on.
Right. So what is the purge of the spirit?
Right. So in religious terms, because, we like to address things from both sides.
From all angles.
In religious terms, this is where you might be questioning the doctrine or the word of God as it has been described to you by the powers that be in your particular religious system.
In the existential purge of the belief system, you may be doing this as well, along with societal, family, and cultural norms that no longer fit your true personality.
So from both of these angles, you're in a period of isolation. So you're still kind of alone. You're contemplating. Doesn't mean like you're in a yurt, in Tibet by yourself, but you're experiencing.
That's what you like to do, then yurt it up.
So yeah, in both of these, you are in a period of isolation, contemplation, self-reflection. You're doing a lot of thinking.
And this is absolutely needed so that you can truly sit with the self and know what is you and what is not. This is basically the time in the experience where all of these things that have been told to you no longer work for you. So now you're questioning the big parts of life, the big parts of your own belief system, and seeing what fits and what doesn't. It's basically going through your closet and cleaning it out like Eminem.
Okay. At the end of the day, if it is a religious belief system you are questioning, you may either depart from it at the end of your purge of the spirit, or you come back to it in a way that is redefined within that system, but is still independent for you. Basically, if you haven't guessed already, the purge of the spirit is you are departing in one way, multiple ways, or always from your current belief systems, whether that's in religion, societal rules, family traditions, all of those
just mental constructs.
Right.
Some philosophers view this as some sort of a compromise, but it is really up to the individual to choose what fits for their true personality, or at least this phase of it, and what does not, as you will see in the following 5 action steps to get you through the purge of the spirit.
So in the purge of the senses, we talked about
the spirit.
Isn't that
cool?
That sounds really intense.
Purge of the spirit.
You're done saying it. Okay,
Yeah.
So in the purge of the senses, we talked about 5 reasons for the purge.
And if you missed that, go back and watch that video.
And now we're going to talk about 5 action steps that you're going to take to get you through the next half of, or the second half of the
dark night
part, the purge of the spirit.
So before we get into these action tips, I did want to say what is up to Nicole from Overland Park, Kansas.
Yes.
She says number 2 and number 5.
Okay.
That goes back to the numbers game that we were playing earlier. Nima, what is up? Love you, girl. Jerica, Hillary, and Isabel.
And Stephanie.
Thank you guys all for joining us. And let's get into the real good stuff.
Okay, so action number 1.
Action tip 1.
Action 1 is self-assessment. This is the question that you ask yourself. Now that you've been through the hell of the purge of the senses, are you willing to make the journey into the next part?
Yep. So after your purge of the senses, you are now fully aware that you are solely responsible, and that you are in the position to choose the meaning of your existence and the purpose for your life.
So this is the moment that you realize that the freedom that you craved so badly is terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. It's the thing that you thought you wanted because no one else is going to choose for you or give you a stamp of approval on the thing that you choose. So now you have a choice to make.
That choice is, number one, you choose to move forward despite external social or family efforts to prevent you from becoming you. You are willing to take the risk, even knowing that you may become a social pariah. Great word.
Yep.
A social pariah, which is different than piranha, to those who are not going to understand your break from the norm. They don't know why you're leaving this concept or this construct of ideology. They don't understand why you're going away.
It's the crabs in the bucket start to
Why
happen.
you leave me?
So, wow. I was like, because you kind of already know from the purge of the senses that some amount of psychological tension and anxiety are going to be necessary for growth. And this is the point where you must decide to willingly go through another leg of the journey with that kind of tension.
Another level of breakthrough. And that breakthrough is never comfortable, but to you, it's got to be worth it enough. The pain has to be big enough for you to want to go through instead of go back. So you know you're probably going to lose some relationships along the way, but you hope there will eventually be those in the future that resonate with you.
I think this is one of the hardest things because I know we work with clients through the years, like they're going through a spiritual growth process or any kind of self-actualization process. And you're going to have a conflict with people that knew you as one person. And now you're merging into something that is more true for you.
You're evolving.
And you lose some relationships along the way because they're not comfortable with a truer part of you because they're used to kind of more the part that wasn't you.
But that need gets to that point where it is so strong, you need to go through. It is so strong that you are willing to take the chance either way because the alternative is getting plugged back into the matrix and you're not going back there.
So choice number 2 is you choose to get plugged back into the matrix. So just because you got through the first part of the dark night of the soul, the purge of the spirit, doesn't mean that many people pull the plug right there and go back. Yep. So you choose to get plugged back in. And nothing illustrated this more perfectly when the dude from the Matrix said, plug me back in. I want the steak. I want the steak.
I want the steak.
Someone who is not willing to undergo some personal, social, self-inflicted, mind you, discomfort, because you know you're going to have discomfort, however temporary, because it's not a permanent situation, is not going to make it through the purge of the spirit and this belief system purge, even if there is an environment that supports it or new people available to support it.
And rather than go through another cycle of pain and discomfort, even if it's going to lead you to the promised land, this person believes that it's going to be more comfortable to go back to the norm rather than face this anxiety or this psychological tension by not pursuing the true individuality that is birthed by the purge of the spirit. It's not big enough for them yet to go through, so they go back.
And chances are you kind of do a refresh of the purge of the senses and start over if you're deep thinking enough. So this is kind of the place where you got to action step number 1 is, do you have the courage to, and are you willing to make the journey? Now that you've gone through the first part, the purge of the senses. Right. See, the purge of the senses, the first part of the dark night of the soul, is sort of involuntary.
It's kind of the trigger event.
Right. It gets triggered by the crisis that you've gone through that triggers it, the death, the divorce, the whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever that big crisis is that creates that psychological tension inside is kind of an external event, triggers the inside, and then this becomes the moment where we start to have the choice of, is it big enough for us to go through, or do we go back?
So in phase number 1, you're kind of thrust into the purge of the senses face down like Elvis, but with the purge of the spirit, you kind of at that middle point in the dark night of the soul, and now you're willingly making the choice to continue.
And she says that because we're in Vegas, Elvis. So action tip number 2 is accept the fact that you are becoming a new person, even if you do not know who that is yet.
So this is where the change, the metamorphosis of you starts to happen. You've made the decision. Now it's starting to happen. a Polish psychiatrist, Kazimierz, she says some Polish name, Dabrowski. We'll just call him Dabrowski. He developed this.
The Big Dabrowski.
The Big Dabrowski developed this, what they call the theory of positive disintegration. Okay, which is kind of a more updated version for our modern times about the dark night of the soul and what happens in the purge of the spirit from a more kind of science of the mind perspective. He said that the true human personality is not generic. It must be created and shaped by the individual, you, me, to reflect his or her own unique character.
It is like you are your own piece of clay and you've got to mold it based on how you want to be. And not everyone displays enough courage or potential to allow a unique personality to emerge, and so creates one based on what fits in the norm.
And that's most people, right? So to create this authentic personality, you've got to examine your beingness and make choices at this point that support aspects that are more you, and inhibit or get rid of those aspects that are less you, based on your personal personality ideal.
The ideal personality for you based on what you discover through these processes. Strong anxieties and depressions can happen as you release these generic personality parts and experience the grief of loss. But these emotional upheavals catalyze the emerging true personality. It's like you go and you get your it's basically a forging of yourself that gets hardened and honed by the grief of the loss of the old part of you that wasn't even really you. It was that temporary you. And then you go through this experience and you get the real you, and then it gets hardened into this forging and catalyzing of who you actually are.
And this is why it's hard to make a decision and this is why there's still emotional upheaval and anxiety and emotional things that can happen that feel really dark in the second half of the dark night of the soul. That's why it's still called the dark night of the soul, because you're grieving the loss of what was once a true part of your personality that you thought was true.
Right. And
then you realize after examining yourself and what you really, really want, you realize that
I was just a placeholder.
It was a placeholder. That wasn't really my authentic self. So you're grieving the loss of that, even if it's a false part of your personality that you've operated from because of society. You're still grieving the loss of it because it's a change.
Right, because that's an identity that you have, or a part of yourself, even if it was a mask that you've identified with. So the taking off and the removal of the mask of your temporary self is a grieving process, because anytime there's a big change, there's a grieving process. And Isabel, I do want to let you know that we have seen your question and we will get to it at the end. So anybody else, if you've got any questions as we go through this, just continue putting them in the comments and we will get to them at the end.
That's a great question. And the question is, why is it so lonely of a process? I'm just going to talk about that right now.
Okay, I guess we're just going to get into it.
We're going to talk about that during the steps. So you will get the answer before even the end. It's necessarily a lonely process, the dark night part, because you need that space and time to contemplate. And this is the action step where that applies. You need that alone time, that isolation to really contemplate, is this the way I've been operating, this part of my personality, really me, or is it not? You can't get to that space until you are isolated by yourself.
If you're still influenced by external norms or external belief systems or external people, you can't find out who you are with all of this feedback coming in from everybody else. So it serves two parts. The first part is to make it big enough. That moment when you are forsaken, when everybody has left you, when you are so alone, is the moment that starts to bring up that psychological tension to bring you to the point of whether or not it is big enough for you to break through, to make that choice, to step through, even if it's going to be painful, because the choice of going back is
not an option.
Not even on the table, right?
So here's why there's grief in this action step number 2, accepting the fact that you're becoming a new person, even if you don't know who that is yet. First of all, you haven't solidified your new value system.
Right.
So you don't even know what that is going to be because you're trying to still figure out what's you and what's not.
You're like a butterfly fresh out of the cocoon.
And so you're grieving and experiencing loss in the second half of the dark night of the soul because you're having regret. You're like, oh my gosh, I was operating from a total false truth.
And I was so happy back then.
But I was totally blinded and I was asleep. So you're kind of grieving, oh my gosh, I was stupid, You're
grieving the woke process.
Right. So let's get on to action step number 3. And all of this is going to start to really gel together for you and make a lot more sense. So action step number 3 is just keep swimming.
Just keep swimming. This emotional crisis disintegrates the previous generic personality, that false personality or temporary personality that was based on the primal, basic, lower instinct and the social norms of the masses.
So those 2 things are going to be really important as in the next few minutes. The primal lower instinct and the social norms of the masses. Those are the 2 elements that most people are operating in.
Yes.
Okay, but the process that you have started in figuring out what's me and what's not me is very young, okay, and it's not stable yet. So you need to maintain this process somehow. So this action step is crucial. You need to develop, and this is something that you may not have come in life with naturally. In this case, it's something you need to develop. You need an insatiable drive and motivation toward your individual growth and your autonomy, which is your ability to be who you are as an individual.
And stand strong on your own 2 feet with your own butterfly wings, strong as fuck.
In a group. So you can be individual within a group so that your unique talents and creativity can unfold, not just copying the norm, right?
Yeah. You don't want to copy Joe Schmo because you're not Joe Schmo. Let your wings get stronger by continuing to swim. Butterfly, swim. You are your own motivator to just keep swimming. So you've got to be your own cheerleader here. As you strive, let your true personality develop. Let that part of yourself unfold and kind of get to know yourself, get to know this real part of you, and see where you go from there. Remember also that the purge of the senses, you were developing spiritual stamina.
I think that was reason number 5 for the purge of the senses, spiritual stamina. And
that's the ability to keep on swimming.
So this is going to serve you, that kind of stamina you started to develop in purge of the senses is going to serve you now in the purge of the spirit in this action step.
So action step 3 is to develop drive and motivation as a habit, an operating system, and a way of life. Okay, this is gonna continue to help you to maintain any other cycle that you go through.
So this insatiable desire of
insatiable.
I love insatiable.
Yeah.
This drive to have this drive and motivation is what is going to break you free from all that anxiety and depression and that feeling of loneliness that accompany the purge of the spirit.
And I think this is perfect timing because Leah just asked the question, what can I do to heal through this process? And this part right here where you're just continuing to swim and you're starting to build that drive and that motivation, that's what's going to help you to heal through the process too, is I know that there's another side to this. I know that I'm going to get through this and I don't care how long it takes. I'm headed there to that part of me that I really want to get to know. But you have to take the action to create this habit until it becomes a part of you, until it becomes more natural for you. So you've got to build your natural habits. Because they're not natural.
But so how do you heal through this process? Taking all of these action steps one at a time.
Yes.
And we're going to give you more directives to that. As
matter of fact, the next one,
this
next one coming up is perfect for that too. This is action step number 4, and that is taking stock of where you have been.
So now you've realized that you are misaligned with what's happening in your life. So that's the first step. And that's you're probably in a lot of pain because of that. That is kind of the thing you're healing from, that grief of what you were or were
Mhm.
trapped by, and you're evolving into what you want to be, but you
Yep.
don't know what that is yet. So the first step is to take stock of where you have been. And this is all pieces and parts of the healing process. It's not like a magic wand that happens all at once,
Mhm.
but it is important to take the action steps. So I think we mentioned in a couple of episodes before this one, the philosopher Kierkegaard, who said that angst and existential despair, which is the pain, occur when an inherited, a borrowed, or a collective worldview is suddenly unable to handle any unexpected or extreme life experiences. And that is the thing that pushes you into the dark night of the soul.
Yep. So if this is making sense to you, and if you guys are experiencing some massive aha moments or some breakthrough moments, let us know by hitting that like button. And if you haven't yet subscribed, that would be a great thing to do to continue getting more good shit like this. As we continue, this brings us back to Dabrowski. The big Dabrowski.
I mean, this brings us back to the big Dabrowski, coming off of the Kierkegaard comment.
These names, though.
They're smart guys have big names, I guess. And his theory of
I like that.
positive.
That means I'm not smart.
Okay. Dabrowski's theory of positive disintegration. He said that most people live in a state of primary or primitive integration. Okay, this is the state that you are grieving as you
move into autonomy.
Move into the purge of the spirit.
Right.
So most people live in this state of primary or primitive integration. And that primary way of living is guided by two factors. And I mentioned them earlier.
Right.
And this is where they become important.
Biological impulses.
And the unquestioned adherence to social convention, cultural assumptions about the way things are supposed to be, and family traditions that don't fit for you.
Everybody else does this, so I'm supposed to do it. And that's just that primitive, primal, go with the flow kind of attitude. And he called this level 1. And
we simply call it not woke. And so we throw this term around, not woke, all the time. Right. And this is actually, from a psychology philosophy standpoint, this is actually what it means to be in that state of primary integration. Biological impulses, unquestioned adherence to social convention, cultural assumptions about the way things are, and family traditions that don't fit. So not woke is simply where there is no true individual expression of that autonomous self. You're operating totally in your autonomous true self.
It's like being in the matrix before you get woke up, before you get unplugged. That's not woke. Okay, so you're in the matrix in dream state.
Just walk out the door, everybody at the grocery store. Okay, so here, individual expression is influenced and restricted by those two factors in the following ways.
Your energy and your talents are used for primal, lower, self-serving goals where the primary focus is on survival and self-advancement. Often people advance their goals in this level at the expense of others. So this is where you walk in on your friends.
This is what level 1 looks like. This is what you're breaking out of as you come into the purge of the spirit. This is what you're breaking free from. And this is why it's lonely. This is why it's painful. And this is why you're grieving it, because you're rewriting your computer system, your operating system. So the social environment that you're breaking free from kills individual expression by encouraging a group view of life.
So to a detriment.
Right. So in society, in religious groups, in family groups, we have this group view of life that we've all adhered to. Well, that may not totally fit you, but you want to remain part of that system. So you comply with different things that might not necessarily fit you.
Resistance is futile.
So what this does and why it's painful is this, and it's never really going to work for the individual. This externalizes, meaning puts it outside of you. It externalizes your values and morals,
which in turn externalizes the conscience and consciousness.
So if you're operating from an external worldview and you haven't gone through the purge of the spirit and you haven't written your own rule book and your own guidelines, you're operating from an external consciousness. I hope that makes sense.
So if that does, hit that like button, smash on it hard, and share it with a friend.
So because conscience
I just had to throw it
You're
in
like
there.
you're like the ads
The
that come
bouncing
across.
ball.
He's like those YouTube ads that come
Wow.
across when you're trying to talk. Okay, so
boy.
because conscience is derived from this external context, as long as that society or that religious system or the family tradition,
Whatever the group is,
holds ethical standards, as long as that system is ethical and good, the not woke people are going to behave ethically because it's what we do. We go along with what's the ethical right.
So if that external has a solid moral and ethical base, then the individual has a solid moral ethical base.
So if the society becomes corrupt, whatever system that is,
Mhm.
people that are not woke are going to be corrupt as well. They're going to just accept it because it's the norm.
Yep.
Okay.
Whether it's anarchy or sons of anarchy.
Boy.
Anyway, so individual reactions for those that are not woke or those who have not yet completed this purge of the spirit are not unique, but these are based on those social contexts.
So your action here in this step is to observe objectively where you came from, because you're in the middle of a grief process of letting go of that part of you that was just going along with everybody else, so that you consciously know what did not work for you. So in order for you to create a system that works for you, you've got to know what didn't work.
Yep.
Okay, so that's what our action step number 4 is all about.
Absolutely. And next we get to action step number 5. There is no roadmap. Start from scratch.
So
you're building yourself like the bionic man or the bionic woman from the ground up. We can rebuild him.
So, and this is I answered one of the questions earlier.
If you know that one, let me know in the comments.
So Leah asked, what can I do to heal through this process? The first part is observing what you've come from, and now the next part of the healing is to kind of build yourself.
Figure out where you go.
So there is no roadmap though. So
Yep.
here's the part that kind of sucks. You are starting from scratch, which, like we said in the step number 1, now you're free, and that's the scariest thing ever. In the cage, you knew what to expect, right?
And you knew when you were going to get food and when you were going to get water and who was going to be your friend and who wasn't. That was all set for you.
But it's really boring. So
now you're committed to finding and walking your own path. You do know where you've been, and now you have the drive and the motivation. Now you find that there is no roadmap. There is no plan. This is not going to be a smooth or easy journey. And now you have to essentially create your own guidelines from scratch.
So Joseph Campbell is one of my biggest personal influencers, who is like a guru and a genius of understanding.
But he's not a cookie cutter.
He's dead. So he's passed on. God rest his soul. So Joseph Campbell was a genius as far as pulling together all the world's mythologies and kind of creating a blueprint for how we think and how we believe. So he was describing King Arthur's knights on their quest for the Holy Grail. And he said, if a path exists in the forest, don't follow it. For although it took somebody else to the Holy Grail, it will not take you there because it is not your path.
No one can show anybody else the right path for them. Everyone has to find it for themselves.
So that being said, your action step for action step number 5, which is leading us into the next episode, because I want you to come back.
Whoa.
That
next episode.
Your action is twofold. He is like on full nerd today.
I'm nerding out.
Oh Lord. Okay. So
it's because I'm white and nerdy.
So you start writing your guidelines, which is, by the way, the bridge that takes you into the second phase of the Dark Night of the Soul process, which is illumination, which is a little bit more fun, guys. It's not as sucky.
Right.
So
and we'll get into that one in the next
Right.
episode.
That's the next episode. But the illumination part is what this action step is leading you into. And most importantly, and this is part of how you heal, the first part is start figuring out what your truths are. How your actions fit in a true way for you, and then create a context. And this could be multiple kinds of things from which to deal with the emotions that are going to continue to purge as you release that old generic you and create a new authentic you.
You're basically rebuilding a new roadmap for how to do this in the future. So you're creating this context and you're creating this construct inside of your mind for how to purge and how to process. So the next time you do it, you're going to get better at it. So these are unforeseen grief process that you have yet to unleash as you rewrite the rules of your life and develop the courage to express your authentic self.
So as you do that, you don't know. There's no way to know, and there's no way for us to tell you when you're going to run into a roadblock of grief, of
I
letting
don't know
go
when
of
you're
something.
going to do it, but I do know that when you do it, you're going to do it on your own.
So we were about to tell you how you don't have to do it on your own, but David, spoiler, just like,
So Kiki and Andy, thanks for joining us. Hillary, you guys are awesome. Okay.
So you're going to have these unforeseen grief processes that come up during this time period, however long it lasts, that you're rewriting your operating system, right? So as you write over the old code, you're going to have this process of grief, big, small, medium, minuscule, on letting that thing go. So you need to develop a context through which to heal that, and this is where
to process through it.
This is where the healing and processing part comes. It's sort of
this is where you start to get to the healing of it.
Right. So what are the possibilities in this? It's individual for the person. You might find, a Reiki person to help you release. You might,
create a new system,
you might get regular massages, go to yoga, go to spiritual
meditation
retreat.
Circles would be good.
So there's any number of possibilities that will help you through the releasing of that old energy.
Right.
What the trick you want to be cautious of, and I see people doing this all the time, and I want to speak to this.
Trigger alert. Beware of archetypal immersion, which is basically where you immerse yourself so deeply into this new system or this new thing that you lose yourself in a new thing.
So I've seen people do this, especially in the spiritual community, who have come over. And when I say spiritual community, that's a very broad-based brush.
Right.
But I see people coming from a system that they're trying to break out of, whatever that system is. And they jump into a new system, but they don't break the old habits of codependence with the system.
So they bring that old system with them.
So what happens? They don't bring the system. They bring the operating
habit.
The habit
of the old system,
the codependence to the system.
Yes.
So what happens is that they will come into the new system, whether it is I'm leaving a traditional religious system and I'm going to immerse myself in goddess culture would be one example. And you get so immersed in the idea of the goddess and the goddess immersion, you start wearing goddess costumes and you get totally immersed in the archetype of the goddess instead of using that goddess idea of the power and feminine and the divine, whatever it is,
to free yourself.
So there's a tendency, and I've seen it happen, to drown in the new system. Yeah. So you need to create a context or find a context that is helpful and healing for you to emerge, but don't become that thing because you just broke free of something that you became and immersed yourself in. So
and there's also the another piece to be aware of is the parallel move, where, like Heather's talking about, it's kind of in line with the archetypal immersion. You're either immersing yourself so much so much into this new archetype that you lose who you are. So you basically just put on another mask, or you make a parallel move and you bring all of these old codependent habits from one system into this new system that is supposed to be setting you free, but it doesn't actually do that. You just trade this one for this one, and it's the same thing.
And I see people kind of doing that in our niche, where they come from a very traditional religious system that was very restrictive, and they come over into metaphysics and spirituality, and then they try to make that a religion. When it's not, it's really a philosophy. It's a system of exploring the mind and the energy. So I see people doing that all the time, and then the same problems arise with the religious system, and people butt heads on what is right and wrong. So that's what
bounce from one thing to another thing and then never get done.
That's what a parallel movement is. So be aware as you're recreating your roadmap in action step number 5 that you are still not totally strong in your own personal ego strength. To solidify and have a solid base for your new true personality that you are creating, to not get lost in a new system, because then you're going to just start the whole system, this whole cycle all over again and have to restart the dark night of the soul. We don't want you to do that.
So if this is hitting home for you, hit that like button, give us some hearts, give us some thumbs up, give us some love. And if you want to subscribe, if this is really kicking you off into awesome land.
There is that YouTube ad just went across the screen again. So
You're funny.
Raise your hand if you've seen people do this, because there's one way I've seen people do it. I've seen people leave a traditional religious system like a very Orthodox Christianity or whatever, and roll over into metaphysics and a spiritual system that's a little more light. And then they immerse into that so far, but never really, they don't go through step number 5, which is write your own roadmap, create your own rules and your guidelines. They never get to that process. Right. They just adopt this new one and they start operating within that system. And then they reach the next dark night of the soul because they haven't written their own authentic guidelines, and they go right back to the old system. They're like, oh, I was comfortable there. This sucks because now I'm dark again. I'm just going to go back.
And they've got to go through the whole purge of the senses again. And then they come face to face again with the purge of the spirit. And if they haven't let go of those belief systems and spent enough time sitting with themselves to question what they really, really believe or what they want or what they hold true in their life to find their authentic self, they're just going to go bypass again and go off to another system and find some other shaman in the woods to tell them what they think they want to hear.
Don't start dropping acid every day to cure your habit of Molly every day. That's basically what I'm trying to say.
Wow. We do not condone the use of drugs. That's the other disclaimer that we're putting up here. I'm still trying to figure out this croissant and breadsticks from Hillary.
Oh,
I think that's her way of raising her hand.
I like it.
I love the croissant and breadstick offering.
I just like croissant and breadsticks. But in a nutshell, the purge of the spirit. In the purge of the spirit, you are dealing with a choice to experience social discomfort, which is only temporary until you detach from that primary biological and social ego that was running the old system.
And this is also the point where you get to the death of the ego. And we'll do a whole nother video on that one later. But the death of the ego, this is the part where the old paradigms and constructs and operating systems die so that you can create the new one.
So this is the real death of the ego that you hear about all the time.
Right. And we'll talk more about it. It gets kind of twisted out there on the interwebs of Google and YouTube. That's just how it is. So the purge of the senses was more personal, internal discomfort, probably more on the physical element. And the purge of the spirit is more of the social discomfort as you distance and decide to dance to the beat of your own drummer and look like some idiot that doesn't know what the song, the band, the play, and everybody else. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
David doesn't know what the song actually is.
Beat to the beat of your own drummer. You get to dance to it, and you look like that idiot at the party that doesn't know that everybody else is playing a different tune.
But that's okay. So right now it is time for more isolation. So yes, it might feel a little lonely, but it's time for inner contemplation and get ready for a total script rewrite. That is what you are doing, and that's not comfortable.
You're tossing out the old script and you're writing the new screenplay.
And like I said, don't be tempted to adopt another script. Go and take wisdom from, let's see this goddess thing, and let's see what these fairies are, and let's see whatever that context is you need for healing and emerging yourself.
Let it be your inspiration for your own script. Don't plagiarize somebody else's script.
Right. Don't adopt that whole thing and say, this is now me.
Shakespeare's pretty cool. I think I'll live like him.
Because it's not you. Pieces of it resonate with you, but not the whole thing. Because remember, someone else created that system and it wasn't you.
That system worked for them, but it's not your system. So you got to make up your own shit. This choice of going into that isolation, that inner contemplation, leads you to the second phase, which is illumination, where the lights start to come on and you see exactly how you want to create things as you want. And we're going to talk about that in the next episode.
The next episode. Yeah. So guys, these two parts are the painful parts. The illumination stage in the next episode, it's a little bit more light, and we're going to talk more about that script rewrite and what it means and what's happening in your personality.
So just like the Dark Night of the Soul, These first couple episodes have been pretty deep and pretty intense, and then we can lighten up from here on out. So now it's Q&A time. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments. If we don't get them live, we will answer them on the replay. And while we wait for those to come in, we wanted to share what one of our Zen heads recently shared with us about their experience.
So this just came in from Joan. She says, amazed and blown away. I was completely amazed and blown away. I was able to find direction for questions that have bothered me for years and was absolutely delighted. This is what blows our skirt up, guys. We love answering questions that are unanswerable. She says, I'm a repeat customer and have always felt comfortable and learned so much from them that helps me so much in my day-to-day life, better than any other kind of therapy I've ever tried. Absolutely love these guys. We love you, Joan. Thank you. Absolutely. This is what we're talking about. We want to explain these concepts to you in a way that is more real, more valid, instead of the kind of hooty bullshit that I hear being thrown around. This is the real process. This is what happens. This is why it's painful. And this is your brain rebirthing itself. Okay.
It's your brain not on drugs. It's your brain on your truth.
Yes.
So just to cover a couple of comments that we got to earlier, and if you're just joining at the end of this video, go back and watch the earlier part to get to that. Why is it so lonely? Isabel says, why is it so lonely of a process? Again, we answered that earlier. And what can I do to heal through this process? I think that was tip number 3 and 4 that really helps with that. And then Hillary says, carry water, chop wood. Absolutely. You've got to build that
stamina
as you continue. Let's see. Tina says, turned out I have remote vision, and every day when I go somewhere, it feels like I'm in a geometric map.
That's fun.
That's actually a pretty cool experience. If there's a question in there, please let us know. I'm not like
totally
picking up any question
that
on that. Right. And Dana, thank you for joining us. You freaking rock. You guys are all rock stars. I want to thank you guys for joining us. So now it's time to share the secret weapon to take your life from basic to badass in 90 seconds.
Because you guys know 90 seconds is all it takes to make a decision. So what are you going to do?
You could keep Googling and watching endless YouTube videos from other people, except for us, because we watch our videos and like them and all that. From all those people doing the same thing everybody else is doing over and over and over, adopting a new system that they don't really know yet. Or you could jump into our brains and plug directly into all of the unique shortcuts, signature mind hacks, and emotional ninja skills that have worked for thousands of our clients to step into their confidence, self-love, and personal power.
So that they can trust themselves, which is what we want you guys to do, to live their purpose. And your purpose completely, well, they're not living your purpose. We want you to live your purpose. So we have learned that self-growth and developing your intuition, like we talked about in the beginning, for a badass life go together like sushi and Sapporo. You would not believe how much sushi we consume. But now it is time for that secret weapon.
And what you need to get started, we're going to start with a couple questions first. Are you tired of living in a repeating cycle of the same old life?
Are you ready to take back your power to live your purpose? I know some of you here are already working with us. And
let us know in the comments. Happy. Absolutely. Can you handle constant brain downloads that will literally blow your mind?
Well, not literally, but
metaphorically, literally. If so, come join Zen Academy if you are ready to take your skills to the next level.
So let me say that slower because it sounded like Zen Enemy. So he's not drunk, I promise. Zen Ed Academy is our personal teaching site. Yes, it's our personal brainchild.
And this is where we drop more brain juice into your dome piece. And this is also where we jack you into the ZRG mainframe so you can break your bad habits and build better trust in your magical awesomeness.
Well, this is like the matrix you want to be plugged into.
Yes. Well, no, it's where he goes back in on his own terms.
Yeah, we'll jack you in.
Yeah, on your own terms. And this is going to work for you even if you're allergic to fairy dust and just want real information without all the unicorn poop.
That shit's hard to clean up, let me tell you.
Glitter gets everywhere.
Even if you've never had any real training before.
Even if you think you know all this stuff and just need a refresh.
Even if you've been misled or bamboozled or something by all those cookie baking copycats.
Even if you're a boss in a totally different niche and just want the edge.
So in Zen Ed Academy, you get all of our unique insights to blend your own self-growth and intuitive development with all of our courses. It's ever growing. The courses are there all the time. You can take it at your own pace. past, present, and future. We do self-growth classes on Mondays, group coaching, and then later in the week we do intuitive development.
Right.
So we make sure it's all there for you in Zen Ed Academy, and it is ever growing. Like I said, it's our baby, it's our brainchild.
And there's already a lot of really cool courses in there. We're just wrapping up our advanced mediumship course, which is in there. We've got the self-love blueprint, which is amazing. That if you join for anything, join for that. And if it's right for you, come and join our inner circle. Start living your power right now. Come hang out with us. All of that information is down below. If it resonates with you, no pressure, no stress.
And we're not going to ramble on about it because it's really cool and you can check it out yourself. So
and Dana says, it's amazing. So valuable.
Yes.
You guys rock. Thank you, Dana. She's actually one of our Zen heads inside of Zen Ed Academy. Hillary is also in Zen Ed Academy, and we love our people, and we pay some very special attention to those people in our inner circle because we love when they start getting their wins and start shifting and changing those brain patterns in their life.
Honestly, Zen Ed Academy is kind of selfish for us.
Definitely.
We get the endorphin rush of like everybody's aha moments, and it's like a personal thing for us.
It's our own voyeurism into their growth.
Well, we've been doing private clients for 11 years now in Las Vegas and all over the world because we do Zoom and Skype and phone for wherever you are. And but kind of having this kind of place where we can kind of see multiple people at once and kind of hang out several times in the week is kind of fun for us. So it is kind of selfish. So
if you like this video,
go for it.
Hit that like button.
If this video helped you in any way or multiple ways, share it with a friend if you would.
If you have any questions, let us know in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. For more badass life tips,
be sure to subscribe
and click the bell to turn notifications on
so you are the first to know
when we drop a new video
or go live.
And we know that time is a valuable and precious resource. The fact that you've chosen to spend that with us and you've made it this far into the video, we absolutely honor and appreciate that. We honor and appreciate, most importantly, that you're spending that time leveling up your skills. We want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day, and we will see you in the next video.
We will see you in the next video.